Hey everybody, it's Safi from Safi and Marco Dish Out on the Movies. Although Marco will be helping me a little bit because I'm still having trouble with coughing and my throat being ragged. That's all I'll say about that. And what I am doing today is my top 10 worst older movies that I watched in 2022. And older doesn't mean they're like made in the 30s or 40s or something. This is anything that is in 2022.
Yeah, it was just a term that I created because I didn't know what else, like the title of the video is like top 10 movies that we watched in 2022 that came out before 2022. Like, it just doesn't sound good. So
It's too long.
Old movies, fine.
Okay, well, my number 10 movie. Now, I think I watched 45 movies. And so I have, top 10 lower and top 10 higher. And then I think I have 26 or something in between. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Yeah,
okay.
and there were a lot of movies that, you really should talk about that you don't have in your top 10 worst. Like, we were both really disappointed with Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
We did not like Monsters Ball.
Ugh.
We didn't like either XFiles movie.
Like the title. Oh, yeah.
You didn't like Assignment Terror. There's tons of them that you didn't like. Like, it seems like there was a smaller amount of movies that you liked for both old and new.
Well, what I could do is do another video where I talk about some of those movies in between.
Why?
Why not? So, anyway, my number 10 movie is called Frankenstein Bloody Terror.
No, it's called Frankenstein's Bloody Terror.
Bloody Terror.
And
our room is kind of dark here. It's cloudy.
Well, Safi, you could have sat in my fucking room.
Well, it's dark in there, too.
Well, it's atmosphere.
Yeah. Okay.
So, the thing is that immediately, this movie's false advertising because there is no Frankenstein in the entire movie, which I had to remind Safi.
Yeah, and I remember us talking about it when we reviewed it, because I think, isn't this a full moon movie?
No.
No, well, I don't know. We seem to do a week of this kind of movie. And anyway, there's nothing about Frankenstein. It says the first word in the title is Frankenstein's. So anytime, like you have an ingredient list to a food product, the very first ingredient is usually what they have the most of. So wouldn't you think it would apply to movies too? At the very minimum, if you have a character's name in the title, that character especially would be in the movie, and it probably be in the movie more than any other character? No, not in this one. Was he even in it at all? And if he was, it would have been for 5 seconds. It was mainly about Dracula and the wolf monster. And that's what they called it. I'm not saying that because I don't know Wolf Man. But no, they call it the wolf monster. Maybe because of a copyright issue. I don't know.
And the thing is that this was blatant false advertising.
Yes.
Because
and that is a no-no.
Safi, let's say that you go to a certain custard restaurant around here.
Oh.
And they say, we have a s'mores sundae. And then you get the sundae, and all it has is strawberries and pineapple in it.
Ew.
It'd be like, oh wait, this is not a s'mores sundae.
Not even close.
And that's false advertising. And it's the same thing. Like, this isn't like a debatable thing where you could say, I think that's false advertising. No, it's objectively false advertising.
Okay, another thing that Marco reminded me about, but I do remember when he brings it up, I remember talking about it. So
yeah, it was ridiculous, Safi. Like, for every movie, I had to basically tell you all the things that you've said yourself.
Marco has a lot better memory than I do, so I credit him greatly for that. But the music in this movie was horrendous, and it was tinny sounding. I remember, that's the only way to describe it. But it just wasn't. It sounded whatever it sounded like noise.
Wasn't it like?
I don't know. I don't know how you get music to sound like that.
I think you just do it like one time, and then you have like a machine that plays it over and over again.
It must be the machine that they. But it was very repetitive.
Yeah.
And bad, and it was tinny. That's the only way I can describe it. It was tinny. It sounded like, like you were doing it in a tin can. Maybe that's what it would sound like. Maybe their acoustics were, I don't know. Maybe they were doing it in a I can't think of what those buildings were called, but they were made out of steel, and they had them in World War II.
Storm drains.
Well, yeah, it could have been. It's those
hospitals.
No.
Tornado shelters.
No. Marco.
RVs.
Well, yeah, maybe an RV, but anyway. I guess that's really enough said.
Your college dorm room.
It's ranked 10th. Now you're going to be surprised when I come up in this top 10 about some of the well-known movies that are in here and how these are even ranked, even though you can't say a lot about it, but they're ranked above those. You're going to be very surprised. Okay, my next
No, you've forgotten some things. Number one, there was like another false advertising thing in the movie where they had this character called the Ghoul Woman, and it's like, wait a second, how is she a Ghoul Woman? She's just a vampire, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was like, okay, what makes her the Ghoul Woman? Like, why wouldn't you just call her the Vampire Bride?
Because I think there's a movie called The Vampire Bride.
That doesn't matter,
I don't know. Some of these people, I don't think they've ever done horror before, and we have an example coming up
This
here.
guy did a million movies. Remember, it was like the Valdemar series, the werewolf Valdemar, and then you forgot Dracula. He's running around, shaking his arms around and doing some sort of a weirdo dance like he's retarded or something. Like, he's just going around going... Like, you can't even let...
I thought that was a different movie.
No, that was Frankenstein's Bloody Terror.
Okay, well, yeah, another thing about this, and I noticed it right away, and it was actually made the movie hilarious. Not what, I think it would piss people off if they're expecting to see a Frankenstein movie and there's no Frankenstein in it. But then you get mollified. Your anger gets mollified by watching the Dracula character they have. He does this thing where he's like a bobblehead only with his arms. And he goes, instead of bobbleheads, well, it's like his arms are like part of a bobblehead, and they're bobbling, swaying right and twisting like a little bit, right and left, and dancing around, and kind of smiling, and like, that is the weirdest Dracula, and what he's doing, it's the weirdest thing you've ever seen. You'd never see a really good Dracula ever do that.
And something that I brought up to Safi that I noticed was that arguably you saw the worst Dracula performance of all time from what you've seen, and the best Dracula with the guy from the Creeps. So you've got to see best and worst Dracula.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to move to number 9 now, which is called Shadow Zone. And I don't think a lot of people have seen this movie. It's a full moon movie, and we did a full moon movie week, and because we like Puppet Master, and Puppet Master falls under the purview of the full moon movie company. And I can barely remember this movie, but it was about this work that these people were doing in a laboratory, and they come upon a monster which doesn't really make that big of an appearance for very long anyway. And it was very boring. And another notable thing about it was The famous Louise Fletcher, who won an Academy Award for her performance in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, was in this movie. And she actually did, because she's so good and so professional, she probably did the best job of everybody. And but there's not much to say about it. It was very boring, and the monster...
No, she didn't.
What?
She didn't. There was that Asian scientist that was better than her.
Oh.
Remember?
Well, he might not have had...
Remember
she
that
might
guy?
not have had that big of a part.
Remember that guy?
There was an Asian scientist, Marco says.
Well, I just remembered him, like, we've been talking, I just remembered him, like, now. So, like, he was the best one, probably, in the movie. He was the best actor.
So, anyway, that's really saying a lot for so little. So, basically, it's pretty boring. The monster's pretty good, but like I said, he was there for about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And which is a shame, because if you really wanted to enhance your movie, it would have probably been wise to have the monster make a longer appearance and do more evading him and fighting him than just having him on and off in 2 seconds.
You think about the best monster movies... the ones that are the best ones aren't the ones where they don't show the monsters. You know, like the shitty-ass Godzilla American version where Godzilla isn't in the whole movie until, like, the very end, and it was horrible.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it, which is really bad.
That was one of the worst movies ever.
And I've seen all the old Godzilla movies, and they were really... And those were made with toys.
But compare that to, like, Nosferatu, where every time he's on screen, basically, you see the monster.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, if you didn't see him on screen, like...
You wouldn't want to watch it.
It'd be a shitty movie. I don't know why jelly bean just randomly dropped out of your sleeve.
Weird. Don't ask me.
What flavor is that? Taste it.
It could be chocolate or it could be cranberry.
Taste it.
I don't know. Cranberry.
Ew.
I have a Christmas bag of Christmas flavored jelly beans. So it's eggnog, cranberry, chocolate, peppermint, and
you know, it would be a really fun video to do, Safi. Come up with the top jelly bean flavors that they should make based off of movie characters, like just right off the bat.
Or just do one on favorite jelly beans.
No, make one that tastes like the monster from Shadow Zone. Like, what does that monster taste like?
Mint. There wasn't he green?
No.
I thought he was green.
He was like, he looked like rock candy, actually. Like, he looked like a monster made out of, like, orangish, reddish rock candy.
I was thinking about orange. Okay, well, he was on screen for such a small amount of time, I didn't remember. Anyway, I gotta keep going because my throat is, like I said, it's ragged.
You've been saying that every video.
Because it is. Okay, my next movie, it's number 8. And remember, I'm counting 10 to 1. So I'm on number 8, and I've done 9 and 10. Okay? So this is the XFiles. This was the newest movie. There were 2 movies made. And, oops. It's our answering machine.
This is why I like to do videos in my room, Safi.
Oh, it's okay. Anyway, this was the newest movie made, and I think it came out in 2008. And these 2 movies, although they were made years apart, they were both horrible. And the first movie, which I don't understand why they made the movie. Marco, I think, knows a lot more about it. He's done a lot more.
Oh, we had a whole discussion
about it. Yeah, we had a whole discussion
the first
about
movie
it.
And how they wanted to end the series after 5 measly seasons and then do a trilogy and then stop doing X-Files. And it's like, yeah.
Well, and they did that movie in between 2 seasons. And
no, they did it. They did it while shooting season 5. So people on the show had to, like, leave the show and not be in certain episodes, and so
they were short-staffed.
Yeah, that's
and
why.
they had to cover for that, and it was really not done very well.
Remember, we talked about that, how like
it affected the season negatively.
You'd have a Scully episode about her stupid religious problems, then you'd have a Mulder episode, and it was like clear that like they had to leave the show, and it was just really like shitty, and it was so not worth it. And then the second movie, they didn't have any excuse because they didn't even have a show anymore.
But I don't think they wanted. It just didn't seem like they wanted to do the movie. I don't get that, frankly. People are dying to make movies, and if they could do, I mean, we just had this one, and I've already talked about 2022, and won a Golden Globe last night. But it was for the best. I put it at number 8, I think, or 7. It was The Fabelmans. And Stevens, they have their movies in categories. This was the drama movie
Safi,
category.
Nobody gives a fuck about the Golden Globes.
At least that guy he could do, Steven Spielberg could do a movie probably whenever he wanted to and get the money and never have to bat an eyelash to get the money for it. But, a lot of people would like to make movies, and so they make this X-Files movie, and the way it seemed like they were just like forcing themselves to be there, like it was a pain in the rear, and it really pissed me off. Anyway, the worst, what would you call it, the scene of any movie, an older movie that we saw in 2022 was in this movie. And even though I've got it ranked 8, which I think I was being generous.
You were being too generous.
Very generous, yeah. Was, Mulder was not in the FBI. He was like out. But he got interested in doing this UFO case, conspiracy, etc., etc. And so he was really excited. And so he's talking to Scully. Now she's back to being a doctor, and she's got this ongoing case with a kid she's very upset about because what she's doing is not working. So anyway, he's telling her all about whatever he's doing, and she said, "Look, Mulder, I'm a doctor, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm not in the FBI. And you, on the other hand, why don't you just write it down in a book?" And I was like, what the hell? She actually said that right after everything. I mean, we've seen every episode, and she's telling him to write it down in a book? Oh, that's the most asinine thing I've ever heard. And there was another asinine thing that was said in the movie too. Marco could
you want me to go ahead and say that line for the millionth time?
Go ahead. Be my guess.
I castrated myself when I was 26.
Yeah, the guy who played in Harry Potter, I think it was actually the first movie, Headless Harry or Headless something, and it was that actor, and he played a priest, and he was like psychic, and he was helping them on a case.
But he was also a pedophile.
He was also a registered, everybody knew that he was a pedophile.
So that was
maybe convicted,
that was
registered.
That was his quirky character trait that Chris Cop-Out Carter thought would be interesting. Like, ooh, a pedophile. Yeah, very interesting.
Chris Carter is weird.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
Ryan Murphy has these little issues, but this guy is weird. Because the decisions that he makes are like, I don't know if he's drunk when he makes them or he's just doesn't have any common sense.
Well, I think he hates the fans, but, but believe me, we hate him more than he even hates us. Like, we don't like Chris Cop-Out Carter in any way. Like, for the stuff that he's done, and while you're fondling your Gatorade bottle and slurping it down. The other thing about this movie is that it just fucking sucks. Like, it's not the X-Files.
It's really a terrible movie.
It doesn't feel like the X-Files to me. I would have rather just preferred if they made a Lone Gunman movie.
Yeah,
but they killed them off. So
yeah, they killed them off.
Ruined that.
That would have been, and we've said this when we did all of our X-Files episodes, season by season, and we ranked everything. The Lone Gunman, which some of you may not even know about it, those 3 guys who helped uh, Scully and Mulder on cases, and they had their own series for one season, and the first episode was horrible, but the rest of them were really good because you know what? They were very popular with the writers, but then they killed them off because they wouldn't renew. I don't know what happened. Their season didn't get renewed, but that's what Mark was talking about, that a movie about them would have been great, but since they killed them off, you couldn't do a movie. So, okay.
Yeah, like I would trade the whole X-Files series for a whole Lone Gunman series instead.
Because they were fun. They were serious, but they were also fun because they didn't take themselves so seriously. You wouldn't have one of them say, well, just write it in a book, you know.
Well, they would. They would say, just write it in our newspaper.
Okay, well, this one is going to freak people out. Excuse me. It's number 7, and it's Top Gun, and I'll say it Top Gun 1. And I had never seen this because it was at a time when we were really, really busy. And it's Tom Cruise because we did a Tom Cruise week. And
well, it was technically just a day.
We just don't like him. And
No.
I'll just speak for myself. I don't like him. And I can't help it. That religion really right now is basically clouding my entire judgment. But I don't like his movies. I do know that he has made some effort recently when he's done a movie that's exceeded even the people who made it, but we'll get to that. And also the Top Gun Maverick. Now that was in my 2022, I think it was number 2 or 3 of my top 10 best because it was a really good movie. And that was a sequel to this one, which was crap. It was crap because you had all these men and they were just showing off and they were just like trying to outdo each other in what they said, their words. It was filthy language and like, I don't care about that, but I mean, it's just like, it's like they didn't know how to say anything but that and they were just showing off.
It's sort of like...
It wasn't realistic at all. It didn't seem like.
And as I said when we were discussing it, it's basically like the opposite of a feminazi movie.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I will take this over a feminazi movie because at least this doesn't insult its audience like feminazi movies do.
Well,
so
no, because it was very popular back when it came out. And it was one of those movies, it was like that 16 Candles movie. That was very popular too. Never saw it then. I saw it years later when Marco and I were reviewing it. And it was just
we've
like
never
this one.
Reviewed 16 Candles.
Oh, I thought we did, but...
No, it was Pretty in Pink.
Pretty in Pink. Okay, well, I never saw either one of those movies back then. And so, when I saw that, and I saw this, I was shocked that people thought they were so great. Especially this one. I just couldn't stand it. And so the one they just made, that Top Gun Maverick, that was done very well. And what that person did, they looked at this movie and they thought, uh-oh, I've got to change some things.
Yeah.
And they streamlined it. They had a lot more flying. And then Tom Cruise knows how to fly. And he actually taught the others. Marco said he designed the mission that they did. And so because he has had, you have to admit it, I don't like him, but he's had a ton of experience making movies. So he helped turn that recent Top Gun movie into the success that it was. So you have to give him credit for that, and that's good. That's a good thing, because the movies that have been coming out, like we've talked about many times, in 2022 were horrible for the most part. And at least there were some shining examples amongst the tons and tons of horrible movies that were put out. There were actually some good ones, and they were so good, and the other ones were so bad.
But what about the old movies? What about the old movies,
Yeah, we're on
actually?
the old movie. So I did not like this movie at all. And I could even, because it's, and the reason why, too, I have it in the top 10 worst, is because with that, the money they had and the stars they had in it, they didn't have they didn't have an excuse to make such a shitty movie. And I know people thought it was good, but after seeing this one today, I'd really love to know what they thought about the shining difference between the two. So,
well, there are some people who actually have the nerve to say that the new one is the exact same movie as the old one.
Not even close. The new one was very streamlined, very tight, as I would say, and well done, well acted, and the flying scenes were tremendous.
Another reason,
if you like that kind of thing, that's for you.
Another reason you have to take into consideration why we hated this movie was, number one, I had to watch this movie twice, so that made it even worse.
Ew.
And then while we watched it, we ate Oops All Berries cereal, and there was something wrong with either the milk or the cereal, and it was gross cereal, and it was starting to make us sick.
Yeah.
So
I didn't remember that part.
That made it even worse.
You bring that back, that memory back. Okay, well, I got to keep going, and guess what? Who stars in the next one?
Tom Cruise.
It's number 6, The Mummy.
Oh.
And these people who are stupid and ignorant, meaning they don't know anything about making horror movies, they were given the opportunity to remake all of the Universal monster movies, or the notable ones, like, Dracula or The Mummy or The Invisible Man or whatever. Well, they made The Mummy, and that starred Tom Cruise, and it's the worst piece of what I've ever seen in my life, and it could have been even ranked above this, but the ones I have put in this top 10 lowest movies, older movies, they're so bad that it's actually ranked above them. But the thing is, I guess I did this, ranked it above, because Tom Cruise actually knows, because of his experience, again, he could see that the movie was horrible. These directors or movie makers didn't know what the hell they were doing, so he stepped in, he tried his very best to save the movie by doing different things, but it was just so far gone that he couldn't save it, and so it was really bad. So don't if you think you're going to see The Mummy and it's a really good mummy movie, or you're going to see a good Tom Cruise movie, no, you're not.
Yeah, like, number one, it's a female mummy. So
that doesn't matter to me. It's just not done well. If it would have been a female movie and a female mummy...
It's not The Mummy in any way. Like, when you think about...
Oh, no, it's not the original at all.
The Mummy. When you think about the copyrighted... Because keep in mind, this is the official Universal Mummy. And when you think about the Mummy, you think about a man who is like 7 feet tall, and he's wrapped up in bandages, and he chases you around and kills you.
And he doesn't say much.
You don't think about a woman who has, like, bandaged lingerie on and chains and, like, fucking face tattoos and, like weird hair that looks like it was cut by a blind retard. Like, you think about The Mummy. And so this movie isn't even The Mummy. It's like something that, like, nobody wants to see again.
It was just terrible, and so I don't watch it. If you want to see some really good older mummy movies, the older Mummy of the Universal monsters, it's okay. There's a few of them. They're not that great, but the real good ones are the Brendan Fraser Mummy 1 and Mummy 2. I mean, they may have had a different title, but those are fun, and they're exciting, and there's lots of action, and they're scary, and they're really good. But they're funny, and they don't take themselves seriously, but they're still really two really good movies with good actors in them.
The other bad thing about this movie is that, Tom Cruise, he's already bad enough. but he's naked like the whole movie. And then they have these flashbacks with the female mummy, and she's supposedly naked. But the thing that they do with a woman nowadays is, they won't show any female nudity because that's sexist. And so they darken the screen so that you can't see her naked body. And so I just think it's really unfair and hypocritical.
It is.
A double standard. The fact that, like, Tom Cruise has to walk around the whole movie naked, and then you have these female actresses and they don't have to be naked at all. It's just fucking ridiculous. And it's like, if they did the same thing with a woman nowadays, everyone would have complained and they would have boycotted the movie and all this crap. So that's another issue to raise, because Safi, you definitely agree with that.
Right. Okay, well, number 5 is a movie called Magnolia. It was a 3-hour-long movie.
With Tom Cruise.
Which I despise.
Another Tom Cruise.
He was in this one too. Oh, jeez, I forgot. Anyway, it was about a whole group of people, but not together. They all had different stories about them. And I don't know, I think most of them or all of them, they were doing negative things like taking drugs or just being a bad person and just all kinds of different things. And you think they're going to, you think they're going to all meet up at the end and somehow, and it never happens. And in the end, it rains frogs. I'm not kidding. Everywhere you looked, it was raining frogs. It's the most bizarre movie, but it was boring, and it was just, you're like 3 hours of my life that I can't get back. But it's so funny because the title, when you look at the title, even looking at it right now, Magnolia, what do you think of? The South. You think of Alabama or Georgia or something because it's called Magnolia. And I don't even know if it takes place in the South. I don't think it did.
No.
And so, anyway, it just was a terrible movie. It's number 5. And I'll keep going on. Okay, my number 4 movie, which I doubt that very many of you have seen, it's called Fateful Findings. And the person who made this movie and has made other ones, his name is Neil Breen. And he lives in San Francisco, I think. And he was an entrepreneur, or he had a very cush job, which made him a lot of money. And I asked Marco if he maybe freelanced or was still in it, but maybe part-time, because he's still making these movies. Because, he has to hire people and, get things to be in the movie, maybe props, and maybe he has to rent places. I don't know. But he directs, writes the story and the lines, and he's in the movie, and he's the worst actor on the planet, and he thinks he loves himself, and he can't act worth shit. And the only acting in the movie was he got mad, and this is a movie where at least one person committed suicide. Now, you know what that kind of a movie it would usually be.
I think like 13 people did.
Oh, God.
In total.
Well, you think it'd be very somber, dramatic, worrisome. I mean, there's all kinds of...
but why would you want that?
Well, because suicide is something really bad.
So you want to watch a depressing suicide movie?
No, I don't. But, you don't want to see this... This guy struts around and he acts like his biggest thing is he likes to hire these women. He rubs up against them.
Safi, he doesn't even rub against them. He's just giving them a hug or something.
Marco, that's what he says. Well, I guess so, but I don't know. You can
tell, he's not fully rubbing up against them. He's just giving them a hug, and it's it's fine to have sex scenes in a movie. But, to have these, weird scenes where he's just, giving women a hug.
Yeah, it's true.
It's really bizarre.
It is bizarre.
It's so, weird and just, this must be, his thing or something. And the character. I heavily disagree about this movie. I think it's one of the best movies of the year.
Marco is lying.
It was so hilarious. It was so fun, and it's like it is a pretty terrible movie. But
I can't stand the guy. I can't stand him because he's a horrible actor.
It was so much more entertaining than a movie like The Mummy or Magnolia.
I guess so, because this guy isn't famous. Well, he is, but he isn't.
You have it ranked below those.
Well, that's because I expected more from Top Gun and The Mummy. Anyway,
No, you're saying Fateful Findings is worse, even though you just admitted to me it's better than those.
No, I don't.
More entertaining.
I think it wasn't entertaining to me.
Why did you commit suicide?
Yeah.
I can't believe you committed suicide.
Yeah, it might have been.
I can't get you out of this one, Jim.
And it might have, and the guy, you might as well have hired a robot, like one of these Japanese-made robots that can do just about anything and say about anything, and do the lines, because that's what he sounded like. He's so horrible. And anyway. If you do want to see, you could watch one of his movies on the internet. Just look up Neil Breen. I don't know if it's Bream or EIM or whatever, but check it out if you want to see. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but you'll see what I mean. And the only time he actually showed some emotion in his acting is when he was talking to somebody. He was in his office by his phone, and he kept getting a wrong number or something. He got really angry, and maybe they were really doing it to him or something. And he got really angry, and that's the only time I could see some honest emotion.
But you haven't even brought up the fact that it was like Twin Peaks in some of the movie. Remember? The
very small. Yeah, the noise.
The whooshing.
Yeah, okay.
You liked that. You thought that was cool. You were like, oh, wow, good job. He's picking up the slack for David Lynch, like everyone else.
Really? Okay, my number 3 movie is another, I think it's a full moon movie, and it's just horrible. It's called Corona Zombies.
Ugh.
And if you want to know what Corona, they're referring to COVID. So here we are in the middle of COVID, because I think that's when it was made. Or maybe at the very onset when it was like exploding everywhere. And it was actually interesting, because what you would do is when you get COVID, you'd turn into a zombie. So, they could have done more with it, but I don't know. It was just like they had part of an idea, but they didn't know about the rest of the idea.
They didn't have any idea. The whole movie was just other movie footage pieces that they voiced over. And then they had these little stupid clips with this blonde woman, and she's like making all these outdated jokes. And the thing is, too, is that what makes this movie even more embarrassing is that Charlie Band, at the beginning of his memoir, which I read last year, he goes into like the story of like, oh my God, so what happened was there was this news thing and it said COVID, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta make a movie about this right now. And he's acting like he's doing something amazing, and he's doing something so important, and like he should be proud of it. Like he's like such a genius that he made this shitty ass fuck movie in a weekend that isn't even a real movie.
Terrible.
And like it's like his most greatest feat of filmmaking, and it's like, see, this is why Full Moon is bad now. Like this is why this right here, Corona Zombies.
Yeah. So there's nothing don't even bother to watch it. I would have ranked this number 1 probably, but there's 2 worse movies than this.
Don't say the title of the next one.
Okay, the next one I can't say the title, but it's a Christmas movie, which you might say, oh, because when you say the word Christmas, it just already goes, oh, Hallmark Lifetime, and then it's no, it's. There's a bunch of 20-somethings in it, and they wear costumes.
And they're really fat.
While they rob people of their Christmas presents, which they don't know what they are because they're always all wrapped up in boxes. So they're stealing something and they don't even know what's inside. And they unwrap them and undo them. And it was just, it was basically a movie to promote somebody's music video.
Yeah.
And so it was terrible. I'm not allowed to say the name. But if you heard or see something like this on YouTube or wherever, don't even bother because it's crap.
What it felt like to me was
total crap.
You got a group of fat teenage girls, and they go to Target, and they get a bunch of Christmas crap, and then they like find a green screen and they mess around for 2 hours. Like that's basically what this movie is. Even if you take away like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the problems. At the heart of it, at the core of it, it's completely unoriginal. Like, an hour of the movie is just them, like, robbing people, and then, like...
opening the presents.
20 minutes of it is the plot of the movie that it describes as the summary, and then at the end they play the full music video, and it's like, yeah, it was miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable experience.
Not worth your time. Okay, my last one, now this would probably surprise people maybe. It has a terrible title, but I put it as number 1 because it's called Reflecting Skin.
No, it's The Reflecting Skin.
The Reflecting Skin. And what I hated and despised about it, I could hardly get past what was going on in the movie as far as the story, which is not so good. But the little boy and his 2 buddies, and something terrible happens to the boys. So I mean, that's almost like it's a payback. But they blow up. They put a straw in a frog's rear end and they puff it out, and then they make it explode. And I just thought that was disgusting, that they would hurt innocent frogs. I know that sounds weird because, I mean, we have friends who had frog legs. But, I mean, they legitimately killed the frogs. I mean, they weren't trying to, what would you call it? It wasn't like...
yeah, we ate them.
Yeah, we ate frog legs. And this was, though, killing them to make him explode. And I thought that was just disgusting and horrible. And so I can't... The story, there's actually Viggo Mortensen is in the movie. He's a good actor, but the movie is really not that great. The story's not great, and this thing, I couldn't get past it. I thought it was disgusting. And I said, now, Marco, that kind of looked real. But, of course, there's tons of, fake photography and, the things that they can do with a computer that show things that really didn't happen.
No, you don't even have to use a computer. You just use special effects.
Special effects. And so, but I didn't like it, and I thought that any kid who would do that would almost probably be practicing for being a serial killer later on.
The thing is, Safi, is that I wouldn't be too upset if they got the fat girls from that Christmas movie and blew air up them and then made them explode.
That is terrible. So anyway, I thought that was awful, and I did not like that. And that was like the very first scene. And they did it, I think they might have done it a couple more times. The problem is there was a serial killer in there, and they were kidnapping children. And the friends, I think both of this boy, the main character, his friends were kidnapped.
Well, yeah, there's this hilarious part where the main kid sees his friend get kidnapped right in front of him.
Yeah.
And then he never tells anyone who did it.
And they're looking. He knows they're looking because he knows their family. Because he's like, both of them are his best friends.
This movie, I really wish that I could have put it as the worst movie of the year, because it genuinely felt like someone had the perfect movie, like the perfect horror movie, a classic in the making.
Yeah.
There were all these elements. You have a sheriff. he doesn't have an eye because this whole backstory about how all these years, all these different incidents, and then a dog tore out his eye, and then you have like there's this vampire woman and she gives the main kid a whale spear, and then you have Viggo Mortensen and he's like a war hero who's coming back, and you think like, oh, maybe he'll be like one of the heroes of the movie or something like, but all of those elements are thrown away. Like the opposite of what you would want to happen happens, because the whole movie is just a pretentious message movie.
I don't know what the message was.
Art movie.
The message was, we don't know how to. We have these ideas, and like Marco said, it could go into something really good, but we went down the wrong road and made it really bad.
Yeah, they ruined it.
Which is a shame, because he's right. Because the kid, he doesn't know for sure, but I think he suspects that his first friend was kidnapped by these people because of something that happened that was said to him, because he saw them, he talked to them, and because they were all together when they drove by, because there were three guys in a car driving all over the place, picking up kids and killing them.
Oh,
I mean, come on.
It's all symbolic for
in a
aging.
small town.
It's symbolic for aging.
Okay, well, whatever. And so...
And then there's that baby, that weird baby thing that they find.
Yeah. And then...
it looks like you.
Marco. And then his second friend, the last one to be kidnapped before, like, the movie ends, he finds out the kid's been killed. He saw him being kidnapped. He saw that he had been killed. He saw that his family was so upset, and he was upset too, and so he runs off in the distance. This is how it ends, and he screams. Because, what, he made a mistake and didn't tell them about these people? Maybe he could have saved his life. Probably not.
It's because he's realizing the horrors of aging and growing up.
Well, the thing is, he was realizing the horrors of there being 3 serial killers driving around, kidnapping kids and murdering them.
Well,
and 2 of the kids that they kidnapped, he knew them. They were his best friends.
I want to make a video called Top 10 Movies That Need to Be Remade.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
And then put this movie at number 1.
Get the stupid frog crap out of it. It set the tone for a terrible movie.
No, I disagree. The frog thing was one of the highlights.
I didn't care for it
because
at all.
It was really creepy how the main woman, who's like supposed to be a vampire, they do this thing to her, and then the main kid has to go to her house to apologize, and instead of being upset, she doesn't even care. And she's like, well, when I was a kid, I used to tie a firecracker to a cat's tail and watch it explode.
That was unbelievable.
I think you guys should try doing that too.
That freaked me out too.
And like that was so good, and it felt like, wow, I can't wait to see the rest of this movie. And then...
Well, guess what happens, though? And I'm just going to say it, it's such a horrible movie. I don't recommend it at all. But those 3 guys who are kidnapping children, well, she needs a ride. She walks everywhere. She can't drive because, what, she doesn't have a car, or she got in trouble, and she's not allowed to drive. And so those 3 guys see her, and she gets a ride with them. And the boy sees her going in the car, and he knows what happens to his friend. And so he knows that they're probably gonna kill her too. Guess what? They killed her.
That's because it's symbolic for death. Because she's saying, I need a ride into town. And then they say hi to him, and they say, do you need a ride too? And he says, no, I'm not ready yet. And it's like all symbolic.
Because I remember that now.
Pretentious.
It's just, they really screwed up on this movie. And like I said, there were 2 roads it could take. They could take the road that Marco talked about, where it could have been a pretty good, decent horror movie.
A really good horror movie.
And then they took the other road, which was, I don't know what I'm doing when I make movies. I don't know when I have something really good, and then since I'm a dummy and I don't know what I'm doing, I turn it into something really bad.
No, it's like he thought he had something to say.
No,
And the
he
thing
didn't
that
say
he-
anything to me except I don't know how to make a movie.
The thing that he had to say was more important, apparently, than making a good movie. Like, let's just throw all these things out the window and talk about growing old.
Okay, so that's it, everybody.
Well, like,
and
Safi, just imagine you go to the movies and you say to someone, "Hey, you want to go see a movie about growing old?"
no, I don't think anybody want to see that, and I certainly don't. I haven't real experience with it.
You want to go see this and then go watch On a Golden Pond afterwards?
Oh God,
You
it's
wanna...
actually well acted though. You have Henry Fonda, you have Jane Fonda, and
You have
it's
a
just very well acted.
You have a triple feature with the Whales of August.
I don't know anything about that movie. Is that new Brendan Fraser movie?
No, Safi.
Okay, I don't know. I've never heard of it. Well, anyway, so those are my 10 worst movies, old movies, that I saw in the year 2022. And the next video I'm going to do will be the top 10 best old movies that I saw in 2022. So, goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.